Canada's cost of living is currently making international headlines. Moving here means navigating a financial landscape where your existing assumptions often work against you. Most newcomers start by mapping their home country expenses directly onto Canadian cities. This approach frequently ignores the structural frictions that specifically target those arriving without a local history. This fanned-out cash represents a totally different set of rules. Canada has built-in financial hurdles designed around expats, specific wiggle room for credit history, getting insured, and even basic connectivity. On the left is your standard expat budget: rent, groceries, transit. But for a newcomer, this red list of hidden penalties on the right is what actually dictates your first year of solvency. Without a Canadian credit history, a simple security deposit usually isn't enough. Landlords regularly demand multiple months of rent upfront before they will even hand over the keys. If you plan to drive, Canadian insurance providers often cannot verify your international driving record, meaning your premiums will spike heavily during your first 12 months. And because of a lack of major market competition, your basic smartphone and home internet plans will likely cost double or triple what you pay right now. To make it through your first year without draining your savings, you have to separate these unchangeable systemic penalties from the extra costs you actually have control over. Let's map out your expenses based on their financial impact on the vertical axis and your control over them on the horizontal. Housing is the ultimate variable. It takes the biggest bite out of your budget, but you control where you sign a lease. Most expats instinctively target downtown Toronto or Vancouver for career networking and lifestyle perks. The reality is steep. A standard one-bedroom apartment in these premium hubs easily demands well over $2,500 a month before utilities. Committing to that number strips your budget of any elasticity. And remember that upfront rent penalty? Paying 3 months in advance requires a massive pile of cash on day one. But if you expand your search to secondary markets like Alberta or Saskatchewan, the math changes. In modern cities like Calgary, your base rent drops to around $1,500 a month for a highly comparable apartment. The trade-off here is logistical. You're trading intense financial pressure for a harsher winter environment and a layout that forces you to own a vehicle. Where you land dictates everything. Your chosen geography acts as a baseline tax that decides whether your daily budget is playing on offense or defense. Back on our matrix, let's look at expenses that have a medium financial impact but require changing your daily habits to keep them in check. We'll start with telecom. Because a few major companies dominate the Canadian market, signing up for a standard premium plan will run you $160 to over $200 a month for phone and internet. Bypass the premium brands. Look for discount subsidiary companies. They use identical cellular networks, but bringing your own unlocked phone drops your monthly bill dramatically. The exact same logic applies to your grocery budget. Food prices have climbed steadily. If you do your weekly shopping at premium supermarkets out of sheer convenience, a single person can burn through $500 a month incredibly fast. You need to locate the budget grocery chains in your neighborhood immediately. Combine those stores with local price matching apps on your phone, and you can stretch your budget by $100 every month. The final variable that dictates your financial survival is how you get to work. If you absorbed the high housing costs of Toronto or Vancouver, you gain access to comprehensive subway and light rail networks. Relying on this infrastructure locks your transportation budget into a predictable, capped monthly pass, costing between $100 and $150. But that capped transit cost comes with strings attached. You are strictly limiting your apartment hunt to neighborhoods near those rail lines, which are the most competitive, expensive areas to rent in. Now, if you chose the space and affordability of the prairies or deep suburbs, public transit simply won't cut it. You have to drive. That unlocks cheap rent across the map, but it immediately triggers the newcomer auto penalty. Because local providers view your international driving record as a liability, expect to pay a minimum of $200 a month for basic insurance. Add the fact that Canadian gasoline is heavily taxed and notably more expensive than in the US, and your daily commute becomes a major expense. You are weighing absolute predictability against volatile exposure. A fixed transit pass offers budget certainty, while becoming a newcomer driver introduces constant monthly variance. This brings us to the core rule of Canadian relocation: premier location, premier convenience, and a low budget. You cannot have all three. You must pick two. Let's look at this decision tree to map out your best path forward based on your actual priorities. If your career forces you into the Toronto or Vancouver markets, you have to offset that expensive rent. You do that by completely avoiding car ownership and ruthlessly hacking your grocery and telecom bills down to the bare minimum. If you prioritize space and target Alberta or Saskatchewan, you'll secure a much higher standard of daily living. But you must arrive with significant cash reserves specifically earmarked to absorb those first-year auto insurance penalties. The quality of life in Canada is excellent, but the system rewards strategic planners, and it financially penalizes the unprepared. Establish your financial baseline, choose your trade-offs